It's crazy.
Hey.
It's a crazy world here.
We're going to France.
Leon Michel resistance
Where
chicks.
all the children, and who knows if they're really children.
It is
want
March 21st,
to kill you.
2007.
All right, so this is a InfoWars article, but I'm going to take you to Marine Le Pen here, where she talks about how unsafe the French schools are. I mean, this is a really big deal, you guys. There was a big study done, and in it they found that 1/3 of Muslims in France think that terrorism is acceptable, and this report will actually not be let out until after the election,
Right.
Because it is so not politically correct. I mean, it is so damning, and I'm going to try to link to it, but the InfoWars has it, and you can kind of Google it. I brought it up, I Google translated it. I read it through earlier today, and the people who did it are saying, listen, yes, these Muslims want to do bad things. I know this. We know this. We're not going to put this whole thing out there because it just makes Muslims look really bad. I mean, really, 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 really bad. So you can read the whole thing yourself, which if you're anywhere near France, I suggest that you do. If you're not near France, read it too. But the highlights are, they studied about, 7,000 high school students after the 2015 Paris attacks. And they wanted to gauge what's the likelihood of this happening again? Where are the kids at? Where are their minds at, right?
Sure.
And so they grilled them. And here's the thing, guys. If this is what they're admitting to, add 50% or to 100% to it.
Yeah, because they're not going to come right out in bold-faced say everything that they're believing.
Exactly. And that's in a lie detector test. This is not a mind-reading test. This is what they're admitting to, right? It's like asking 10 kids to sit down and say, how many of you got drunk this weekend? You know what I mean? All right.
I like that it says the results are disturbing but not surprising given attitudes amongst Muslims living in the European countries.
You should read them.
A young Muslim is 4 times more likely to adhere to radical beliefs than a Christian.
That's even like a weird way to look at it.
Christians really don't have very radical
They're
beliefs
trying to
anyway.
pin Muslims against Christians. It's just weird.
Right. 33% of Muslim students consider it acceptable to participate in violent actions for his ideas. In other words, 1/3 are sympathetic towards terrorists.
1/3.
20% of Muslim students agreed with the statement that it was acceptable to stand up for your religion with weapons.
Yeah.
You know what? It's acceptable to stand up against someone being injured. Your family, your friends.
Right.
24% of those surveyed refused to fully condemn the Charlie Hebdo killings. 21% of those surveyed refused to fully condemn the Bataclan Theater massacre, during which 89 people were killed as part of the wider November 13th Paris attack that claimed 130 lives.
It is worth emphasizing that the percentage of young Muslims who refused to condemn the Charlie Hebdo and the November 13th massacre are likely to be much higher than the numbers listed above, given that those results are representative of the entire sample. Muslims make up just 25% of the sample.
So here's the thing. They weren't just asking Muslims.
Right, so on this particular sample, 20% of Muslim students agreed, but then with the other two numbers, they made it so that 21% of those surveyed refused to fully condemn the Bataclan Theater massacre, but that was the wider. They only used those numbers, so you got to do the math in your head and say, everybody?
Pretty much. Everybody.
Right? Okay. So we asked if these attitudes could be due to economic and social factors or a sense of victimization. The researchers responded that
membership in the Muslim religion is the most predictive factor.
Didn't get much plainer than that, y'all. The results, the French journalist said, they're not very politically correct.
No, not really.
While others at the press conference expressed concern about the timing, noting that the full report would not be released until after the election. So I want to take you to what Le Pen has to say about it. Where is she? She's here. She's everywhere. She's here. She's everywhere.
Deal with the the way the school year is organized, I met with the Minister of Education and I saw that she had a lot of disdain for professional training. I am in favor of putting an end to the single junior high school the way it was set up a number of years ago. I'm also in favor of secularism and security in our schools. There are too many teachers today who are being mistreated. There is an absence of security inside our schools, and I see that our political leaders are turning a blind eye to what has changed. And in fact, the teachers' daily mission is becoming a nightmare. They go to school afraid of what's going to happen. So secularism, separation of church and state, because if we do not have peace and calm within our schools, you cannot teach, you cannot learn.
So
I loved how she said, "Why does all this stuff always come up? It's
Naked
ridiculous."
Ewan McGregor's daughter. Go ahead.
Anyway, when she said that she was for secularism in their schools,
She says that the breakdown of secularism in the country's schools having a devastating effect on discipline. It's not because Christians are bringing Bibles into school, y'all.
Exactly, and that's what I wanted to get to.
Little Christians having their little after-school Bible studies.
Viewers.
Right.
She's saying that because the Muslims are bringing in their religion, which is a very violent political ideology in the guise of a religion.
It's not a religion. That's the problem. You have to get their ideology. It's like bringing in communism, but communism with pitchforks because they're ready to kill you. She says the problem is also being worsened by foreign students speaking their own languages at school, so they can talk behind their teacher's back.
Exactly.
And do all kinds of nasty things. She says we have to do away with teaching the languages of culture origins of children. It means these children are staying close to their original culture rather than learning French.
Which boggles my mind because you shouldn't teach the language of anything but your mother country.
Right.
In America, in the public schools, we are supposed to be teaching English unless you take it as an elective course, Spanish, French, German, whatever. But as far as teaching children in their own language of origin, it's fine because you have to bring students in. They literally don't speak French. You have to teach them French. That's when you teach them French in addition to allowing for some sort of leeway there. But it has to be, there's an end goal of, by like grade 4, you speak French.
So I want to take you to another part of this debate where the people around her, who she was debating, the other debaters were not able to respond to her fierce attack on Angela Merkel, who has become the symbolic of both the German overreach in Europe and the European chaos. She says, I want to be president of the French Republic truly. I am not going to be involved in a vague region in Europe. I don't want to be Vice-Chancellor of Madame Merkel. So let's just go, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think the majority of the candidates seem to agree. Perhaps the TF1 channel could organize another debate with the 6 candidates who are not here tonight. I want to be the president of the French Republic, truly. I am not going to become involved in a vague region in Europe. I don't want to be the Vice-Chancellor of Madame Merkel. I don't want to be the salesperson for a multinational or a large group. I want to be the president of the French Republic, which once again respects Article 5 of our Constitution, which states that the president guarantees national sovereignty and territorial integrity. It's not just empty words when you talk about national independence. Thousands of French people died for our national independence. It means the right to decide for themselves, that the French people decide for themselves, and I believe that the French people have the right to choose to help their own national companies or their own farmers to define their own identity, to defend their values and traditions, to decide to rearm faced with international competition, unfair competition, to help the weakest of our citizens and to bring life back to our rural zones
Yes.
without being lectured or criticized by some supranational structure. Basically, the French people must be able to defend their own interests, not the interests of the banks, not the interests of the financiers, not the interests of European capital,
Preach it.
some European capital that's made the decisions in their stead. It's absolutely urgent to defend our sovereignty, defend our borders against Islamic radicals who really represent a major danger. We must rearm because of globalization, to fight globalization. We have to fight the secular spirit that's developing and which has an impact on women's rights, in particular, negative impact. We should establish proportional elections so that never again things be done or decided without the people.
I love it.
That was, she just is so eloquent. I mean,
Right.
the way she says it, she's so confident.
Right.
And I love that about her, because what I was trying to point out in the beginning, I'm sorry if I talked over her, but she always has this kind of smile and look in her face and sparkle in her eye that is just, I know you guys.
Right.
I know who you are. Why? This is a game you're playing, but I know.
She is the boss. She's got a 4-point lead right now over Macron, and I feel like she's got the confidence to take this all the way. She feels it. She's in that room. She knows who she is. She knows that Macron doesn't have anything going for him. He's just a puppet of the EU, right? And he represents the safe road and stuff like that. He might get some votes, right? She's obviously going to win the first go around. And I think she's got enough chutzpah, and she just carries herself so well.
The thing that I'm getting from you guys, our commoners in Europe and stuff like that, is you're really afraid that the powers that be, are not going to let her win. Now, I have to tell you, that was a massive fear in the United States when it came to Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Everybody in the mainstream media, actually, they were so confident that there was no way that they would let Trump win. Okay? And so I have to believe that there is the same possibility that the actual true voice of the French people will be heard in this election. So we're holding out very optimistically, and that's not a prediction, I'm just telling you, just Leah and Michelle.
Well, from talking from our friend in France, she says everybody around her supports her. So.
The only way I feel that Le Pen would lose is through fraud.
Sure.
The only way. The people there are there, the votes are there, and so, but I love her to death.
It just keeps getting worse and worse.
Le Pen is mightier than this horde.
Especially after this report coming out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, so signing off.
This is Leah Michelle for Resistance Chicks, where it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Mass Faith 3 and Resistance Chicks. Ring the bell for notifications, and find us on Facebook and Twitter. We love you guys. God bless. Stop it.
I was cold all alone. No place for